One of the most terrifying things to me is when someone vanishes into thin air with absolutely no logical explanation as to what happened to them, especially when they disappear in a short amount of time in an extremely short distance. I am a firm believer that people don't just disappear, but that's what happened to 20-year-old Ryan Stuka, and the circumstances surrounding his disappearance are just really bizarre, so let's talk about it. Ryan Stuka was just 1 month shy of his 21st birthday when he mysteriously disappeared on February 17th, 2018. He lived in Beaumont, Alberta, where the rest of his family lived. But on December 1st, 2017, he decided to move to Sun Peaks, which is a really tiny ski resort village in British Columbia. He had never left home before, but he was really excited for this move because he was moving with his best friend to go and do one of the things he loved most, which was snowboarding. He and his friend were going to spend the season snowboarding and working as lift operators at the Sun Peaks Village ski resort. And although he was a little nervous to leave home, he was really excited. And he was only going to be there for a few months anyway, as he'd go back home to Alberta in the spring. But before he got the chance to go back home, he would disappear, leaving behind no clues. And what exactly happened that winter night has never been explained. So the day before Ryan disappeared, which was Friday, February 16th, he worked the full day and then went to his home in Sun Peaks, which he shared with a few roommates. Later that night, Ryan and a few of his friends/roommates went to a silent disco event that was being hosted at a local pub. And then after, they all went to a house party not far away located on Burfield Drive. A few hours would go by, everyone was having fun, and then at 2 a.m., one of Ryan's roommates got tired and decided to head home. They all lived just a short walk away from this house party, and it wasn't unusual for them to just walk home. A few minutes later, another one of Ryan's roommates decided to get up and leave the party, also heading home. And this roommate thought Ryan was right behind him. At 2:10 a.m., Ryan was seen standing up, and he was believed to have been putting on his coat and shoes to go home as well. But after this, Ryan vanished. This was the last time he was ever seen alive. He never made it home that night, and when he didn't show up for work the next day, his roommates and friends knew something was horribly wrong. Ryan never missed work, and the fact that he wasn't answering their calls and texts, they just knew something wasn't quite right. They tried looking at security footage and called everyone Ryan knew in the area as well as local hospitals, but nobody knew where Ryan was or what happened to him. It was at this point that his roommates called his parents to let him know that Ryan was missing, and then they reported him missing to the police at 8:47 p.m. His parents lived over 9 hours away, but when they heard Ryan was missing, they packed their bags and immediately took off for Sun Peaks. The Kamloops RCMP launched a massive search for Ryan involving tracking dogs, drones, infrared cameras, snowmobiles, and helicopters. And on top of police searching, Ryan's parents and hundreds of volunteers diligently searched the entire village. But absolutely no trace of Ryan was ever found. It's believed that Ryan left the house party that night and started to walk home. But the biggest question is what happened to him in that short distance? It wasn't unusual for Ryan to go out with his friends and socialize. And since he didn't know the area super well, he never just wandered off without them. So for him to just vanish off the face of the earth like this was scary and overall just very strange. At the beginning of the investigation, police thought maybe he had been drinking at the party and became too intoxicated, maybe passing out somewhere outside, which was obviously very time sensitive. Because the night Ryan went missing, the weather dropped to below -14 degrees Fahrenheit and had snowed about 8 inches. So if that was the case and he did end up passing out somewhere outside, it seemed likely that he was just buried in snow somewhere along the route that he would have taken to get home. But after digging through the snow and as time passed and all the snow melted, there were still no signs of Ryan. Here we are today, 7 years later, and not one single clue as to what happened to him has ever surfaced. Over the years though, there have been 3 main theories as to what could have happened to him. Theory number 1 is that he did end up getting lost in the woods after leaving the party that night. There is a good possibility that he was intoxicated and ended up getting lost since he wasn't extremely used to the area and died of exposure. But you would think that after all this time that something would have been found by now, like some of his remains or his clothing or any of his personal belongings that he had on him that night. But not even one piece of his clothing was found. One thing that was brought up about this theory is that he could have been attacked by a wild animal after leaving the party. But again, there was no evidence left behind of anything, let alone an animal attack. You'd think that if he was attacked by an animal that some blood would be left behind or drag marks or even ripped clothing, but there was absolutely nothing. Another theory is that he was met with foul play to some extent. Some people believe that after leaving the party that night that he could have been a victim of a hit and run. And after Googling hit and run cases in Sun Peak, I'm honestly kind of shocked how many there were in the last 10 years, so this does seem like a potential possibility. The theory is that he was hit by a car accidentally, and whoever hit him moved his body elsewhere, either off the mountain or out of Sun Peaks altogether. But again, you'd think that there would be some evidence of this in the area, like tire marks or blood left behind, but There was nothing. The last theory is that something happened to Ryan at the house party that night, either accidentally or on purpose, and it was covered up in some way. Some people suspect that Ryan could have overdosed accidentally in the house, and the people at the party helped cover it up. Other people believe that he could have had his life taken in that house by another person, and although there isn't much known about the house party that night, it was searched. So if something truly did happen there, I'm sure evidence would have been found by now. Kind of adding onto this theory is what a man who was staying at a home near Ryan's house had to say. This man said that on the night Ryan disappeared, he heard a guy who was pretty angry yelling to get in the effing car. Now, this could be anything. I know when it's super cold out, I hate when people take a long time getting into the car, so this doesn't sound super unusual to me, but it could also mean something more sinister. And then there's what a retired RCMP investigator had to say when investigating Ryan's disappearance. He initially thought that Ryan just accidentally got lost and died of exposure, but then he interviewed one of Ryan's friends, and that interview changed his mind a little bit. The investigator said that this friend was extremely nervous and acting really strange, and although this information was given to authorities, nothing ever came of it. This theory that something happened at the house party and everyone helped cover it up doesn't seem very likely to me, just based on the fact that when you have that many people in on something, someone at some point is going to say something, and 7 years have passed without a word. It is clear though that something bad happened to Ryan, as there's been no activity on his cell phone, social media, or bank accounts since that fateful night. The Kamloops RCMP hasn't ruled out foul play, but they also haven't found anything criminally suspicious, or anything at all for that matter. They also said that there's no evidence that Ryan ever left the Sun Peaks area. So as time passes, Ryan's case is still frozen in time, and with a lack of any evidence, it's left many wondering what really happened to him. There's currently a $25,000 reward for any information leading to Ryan's whereabouts. His family has gone on to make this Facebook page where they continue to post updates and any information about the case. It kind of created this movement where little green dinosaurs with some of Ryan's information attached to it have been placed all around the world. When people see them, they often take pictures of it and post it to the Facebook group. And in a way, it's a way for Ryan to travel all over the world and touch so many people. The green dinosaur stemmed from Ryan loving dinosaurs as a kid. His mom said that when he was little, they all played a game together where they had to guess the type of dinosaur. In one of his mom's first ever posts on the Facebook page, she said, quote, "Ryan, wherever you are, let's talk about dinosaurs." And that just breaks my heart. The not knowing is literally devastating, and his family just deserves answers. I just can't fathom that 1 second you're living your life and the next, everything changes. These are some of Ryan's characteristics and what he was last seen wearing. If you have any information about his disappearance, please contact the number on the screen.
So check this crazy ass loophole I just went through. I nutted in the condom. Put water in the condom. Okay? Then, you want to take it a step further, put the condom over a light. At that point, you're going to see a homemade lava lamp. Not gabbing though.
Kenny Veach disappeared after finding a mysterious cave near Area 51, and it's one of the creepiest missing person cases I've ever heard of. So Kenny was an avid hiker of 20 plus years and a YouTuber who would create videos of his solo hiking journeys in the deserts of Nevada and California. He became so comfortable and confident hiking alone that he would often camp for several days without a GPS, a compass, or a map. In June of 2014, Kenny came across a video titled "Son of an Area 51 Technician" and left a comment that would gain a lot of attention. Kenny detailed a scary experience he recently had after finding a mysterious hidden cave near Area 51, or more specifically, near the Nellis Air Force Base in the Mojave Desert. Kenny said that the entrance of the cave was shaped like a perfect capital M, but as soon as he got close to the entrance, he felt unusual vibrations throughout his entire body. He said the closer he got to the cave's entrance, the worse the vibrating got, and then an indescribable fear came over him. He couldn't explain it, but he was so scared that he ran out. In the comment, Kenny went on to say that he solo hikes across mountaintops that many people wouldn't dare to go, and that he's been in more caves than he can count. He said he plays with rattlesnakes for fun, but this particular cave was unlike anything he had ever encountered. His comment on this video kinda went viral, and a lot of people were pushing for him to go back and try to find the cave to document it. Almost every single comment was urging him to go back, all except for one that read, quote, "Do not go back there. If you find that cave entrance, do not go in. You won't get out." End quote. But this didn't stop Kenny, and on November 10th, 2014, he set out once again to try and find the M Cave. It was originally only supposed to be an overnight hike, so he kissed his girlfriend goodbye and told his family that he'd be back the next day. But Kenny disappeared that day, and he's never been seen again. When he never came back home, his girlfriend reported him missing, and a massive search was launched. Authorities began searching an abandoned vertical mine shaft that was in one of Kenny's recent videos, and there they found his cell phone. Several miles away, they also located Kenny's car. Other than this, no trace of Kenny has ever been found. And because of the nature of his disappearance, it sparked chilling conspiracy theories as to what could have happened to him. One theory is that Kenny became lost or injured and succumbed to the elements, or he could have possibly been killed by a wild animal. Another theory is that he accidentally fell down a mine shaft somewhere and just hasn't been found yet. But one terrifying theory that people have come up with is that the M cave that Kenny found and was trying to locate again was the entrance to a secret government facility, and that his disappearance was due to him stumbling across government secrets in hopes of keeping him quiet. And of course, the biggest conspiracy theory that people have come up with is that Kenny disappeared after encountering aliens since the cave was near Area 51. But obviously, these are all just theories and have never been proven. A more realistic theory has been brought up by his girlfriend. She says that it's possible that Kenny died by suicide as he reportedly struggled with his mental health in the years leading up to his disappearance. She mentioned that he left behind his camera, so he obviously was not going on that hike to film anything as most people thought he was. This would make sense considering a few life changes before he went missing. Just the year prior, Kenny suddenly quit his job to become an inventor. He reportedly invented an improved version of a toilet paper holder, and he even submitted the concept to Shark Tank. Kenny also tried to sell his house, but under one odd condition. He demanded that the new owner had to hire him as a caretaker and continue to let him decorate the house in his own style. Because of this weird condition, he never had any offers. Regardless, it's now been 10 years, and Kenny's disappearance remains unsolved. There's a really strange missing persons case happening right now out of New Mexico, and we should talk about it. This is Ingrid Colleen Lane. She went missing on October 15th of this year after leaving the Bodhi Manda Zen Center in the Jemez Mountains. She went on an overnight meditation retreat to clear her head and focus on her mental health, and it's something that she had done multiple times in the past, except this time she never returned home. Ingrid was last seen that day on Forest Road 144 by two hunters after her 2019 Subaru Impreza hatchback got a flat tire. The two hunters aired up the tire for her and asked if she wanted to ride to the nearest town as it was a really remote area, but she declined and said that she wanted to hike to a local mountain peak. This all happened around 2 p.m. Unfortunately, she did not specify which mountain peak, and this would be the last interaction that she would have with anyone. 3 days later, her car was found abandoned on that same road, and the rear window was smashed. And this is where things start to get strange. Inside the car was a burner phone that was still in its package, untouched and not activated. Her family, but more specifically her husband, are really confused on why that would be in her car. All of her accounts, including her cell phone, have not been active since the 15th. A massive search was launched for Ingrid, which consisted of canine units, drones, ATVs, and helicopters, but absolutely nothing has been found. The Sandoval Sheriff's Office brought in tracking dogs, which tracked Ingrid's scent in the area south and east of her vehicle on Forest Road 144, which is between Jemez Springs and Los Alamos, but it quickly died off within 2 miles of the vehicle. Authorities speculate she may have gotten a ride further into the mountains because of how suddenly her scent disappeared, and how the canines couldn't pinpoint a way she would have gone out. Most of Ingrid's family live in Oregon. They've spent countless hours traveling to New Mexico to search for her, but the terrain has made it really difficult. The area where she went missing is high elevation, densely forested, very remote, and way beyond cell phone range. According to a local sheriff, it's a really easy place to get lost in. Despite that, it's a really popular place in the hunting community and for avid hikers just like Ingrid, who had been to the area multiple times. Like I mentioned earlier, Ingrid had stayed at the Bodhi Manda Zen Center many times in her life. The Zen Center reportedly confirmed that Ingrid had been there that day around 9 a.m., and while she was there, she meditated with the group but left shortly after. The director of the retreat said that she seemed to be in a good frame of mind and that nothing was amiss. But Ingrid completely vanished, and it's now been 6 weeks with no sign of her. At this point, authorities do not suspect foul play despite the odd circumstances. Her family stated that she struggles with sleep and mental health, but they don't believe that she went into the mountains not planning to come back for many reasons. One reason being is that she was really happy before this happened, planning on going back to work the next week, making plans, and just overall excited about her future. She and her husband are described as having a once-in-a-lifetime type of love, and they say that it would be so out of character for her to just leave without saying anything. Ingrid also has a rare lung problem that worsens when it's cold out, so it would be extremely unlikely that she would intentionally hike far away from her car that day. She also just wasn't packed to camp or be gone for an extended period of time. Her family has searched Tacoma, which is reportedly the highest point in the area, as well as San Antonio Mountain, but because it's now winter, the dangerous terrain has made it really difficult to continue searching by foot. I've attached a GoFundMe in my bio created for the family so that they can continue funding the search for Ingrid. They plan to conduct as many helicopter searches as they can with the funds. If you're local to New Mexico, please share this any way that you can. Right now, having her face out there is so important. Ingrid is described as 5'5", 120 pounds, and has brown hair and hazel eyes. If you have any information at all, please call the Sandoval Sheriff's Office at 505-867-7526.
Oh yeah, one more thing. If y'all see me on Love Island, mind your fucking business, bitch. I'm trying to find love, bitch. Y'all had y'all motherfucking chance.
What is one true crime case that you just can't stop thinking about? I always wonder what really happened to 6-year-old Catherine Corzilius. On August 7th, 1996, Catherine, along with her mom Nancy and her brother Chris, were out running errands. Catherine's dad was Paul Corzilius, who at the time was the tour manager for John Bon Jovi. That day was Paul's birthday, so they were all out looking for a present for him. They all lived on Elder Circle, which is a small neighborhood near Austin, Texas. When they got back to Elder Circle, Catherine wanted to pick up the mail from the community mailbox and then walk home. The mailboxes were only about 1/8 of a mile from their home, and Catherine had done this a few times before, so her mom let her. Catherine would take the shorter route home, while her mom and brother would take the longer route around Elder Circle. This way, they would be getting home at almost the same time. But once Nancy and Chris got home with still no sign of Catherine, Nancy sent Chris to go and look for her. But when Chris couldn't find her, Nancy started searching for her by car. Within minutes, they found her laying in the middle of the road on Elder Circle. She was unconscious but still breathing. According to Nancy, she didn't want to make her daughter lay on the hot pavement, so she picked her up and took her to the hospital. Little Catherine suffered from a fractured skull and never regained consciousness, and sadly, she died later that day. Authorities initially thought that Catherine was a victim of a hit and run, but certain things didn't add up. Where Catherine's body was found was in an unusual spot. Her mom last saw her walking towards their house, but her body was found a little over a mile away from their home in the opposite direction that she was supposed to have gone. Catherine's body was actually found along the route that her mom and brother took to get home, and the autopsy only deepened the mystery. The autopsy showed that Catherine didn't die from a hit and run. Along with her head injury, she also had abrasions on her left shoulder, lower back, right hip, and her knees. The ME found that Catherine had either jumped, fallen, or was thrown from a moving vehicle. One theory investigators came up with was that Catherine maybe tried to hold on to the back of her mom's car on the drive home, but fell off. This would explain the location of where her body was found. But her family did not believe this, so they hired a PI. The PI noted that it was a really hot summer day, and at the time, Catherine's left thumb was broken and in a splint, so it would have been really difficult for her to hold on to anything. And it's likely her mom would have seen her in the rearview mirror. Catherine's family believes she was abducted and murdered. After her death, investigators brought in a canine unit that tracked her scent to a vacant lot 30 yards from the mailboxes, but it was lost after that. This sparked a theory that Catherine was approached by an attacker at the mailboxes, ran into the lot, was caught and thrown into a car, struck in the head, and then was thrown out of the vehicle where she was found. Nancy also stated that it appeared her daughter's body was laid out for her to find. Her hair was smoothed down, her clothes were straight, and her sandals were still on. Unfortunately, there's never been any answers in this case, and it's still labeled a suspicious death. John Bon Jovi wrote a song dedicated to Catherine called August 7, 415. And sadly, in March of 2020, Catherine's brother Chris, who grew up to be a police officer, was tragically killed in a car accident.
If you're a
Hello, I got another story time, girl, so pick up the phone. Okay, we back on FaceTime. So this story is going to be about Sarah. So Sarah's family is pretty much like me and how I raise my kids. I don't do sleepovers. Kids can't come to my house. You can't have no sleepover. I don't really do after school shit. My kids really don't go outside. I don't let them play with other kids. You can't go in nobody's motherfucking house. I don't play that shit. And that's how Sarah's family was. So Sarah's family was always like this. You can't do shit. You go to school, you bring your ass home. You want to play, you go play with the motherfucking cousins. Anyway, so now Sarah grandma done became a bus driver for the district. So now Sarah grandma is the bus driver. So, you know, that's kind of cool. It's my grandma. Okay, we ride the bus. So now that Sarah grandma is the bus driver, now she's getting cool with people at school. So she makes friends with this one nigga at school. He's cool or whatever. Him and the grandma hit it off. Nothing like crazy. Just really genuine friendship. The grandma really liked him. He seemed like a genuine man. He had a wife. He had a daughter. Everything seemed like it was great. It was cool, whatever. So because Sarah's grandma is now friends with this man and they have a daughter and the daughter is in the same class as Sarah, so now they kind of like, okay, well, I know them. You know, I got to feel for them. You know, these people cool. So finally, Sarah gets to go spend the night over at the grandma's friend's house with the daughter or whatever. So she's over there, whatever. Everything is cool. So they're little girls. Let's say they're maybe, we're going to give them 10. They're about 10 years old. So, you know, as children do, which I really don't understand this part, because I don't let, if anybody do come to my house, you don't come in my bedroom. That's weird. Unless I invite you into my bedroom, that's weird. But anyway, these kids, they exploring the house because they're kids or whatever. They're just getting into shit. So Sarah and the little girl end up making their way to the mama and the daddy's room. We're gonna call the daddy Dan. So they up in Dan and his wife room, and Sarah notices that on the wall there are so many pictures of naked girls and women. They're naked, and Dan and his wife really don't have no excuse for this besides they like it. So it's just like, okay, whatever, let me try to stay in the child's place and me get the fuck up out of here, because I should not be in here in the first place. Boom. So they get out of their fucking bedroom and shit right there. But Dan's daughter tells Sarah, like, you know, my parents got this closet in their room and they keep it locked. I don't know what the fuck in this closet, but they keep it locked. Let's go ahead and be dumb kids again and go fucking exploring, looking for shit we ain't got no business looking for. So they like, okay, we gonna try to break into the closet, because obviously the closet is locked. So Sarah and Dan's daughter, they trying to break into the closet. They can't get into the closet, but they do get caught. They get caught by Dan and his wife trying to break into the closet. So they're like, oh hell nah, y'all, this whole sleepover shit, it's not gonna work out. Sorry, Sarah, you can't come back over here. And Dan's daughter could never go to Sarah's house. She could never go to Sarah's house and spend the night at Sarah, go play. She could never go over there for shit. Only Sarah could come over there. But now that's out the way. That shit dead too. Y'all, come to find out that all of a sudden, they in a small town. Now all of a sudden, all this news and shit break out because they finding body parts and shit in the city. Now, nobody thinking nothing of this. Everybody just kind of like, wow, this is a tragedy. Oh my God, we finding some lady body parts all over the city, yada, yada, yada. So, Sarah grandma like, oh, this is crazy. I'm glad we don't let Sarah go no motherfucking where. So, now they done figured out who the body parts belong to. So, the body parts belong to this lady or whatever. And then they come back and they like, okay, we can't find nobody related to this lady besides her children. So she got a couple kids or whatever throughout the city. So they get in contact with all the kids. Now, one of the kids ends up being Dan's wife. Y'all remember Dan? One of the kids of the lady who body parts they find all over the city is Dan's wife. So Dan's wife is now going to the police station. She getting questioned and shit like, you know, what the fuck going on? Why you ain't put your mama missing? What happened to your mama? Now, between Dan's wife and her other siblings, shit is shady. Shit is not sounding good. It's sounding bad, but they really don't have no hard evidence to like really get Dan's wife and her siblings or whatever. So they just still doing the investigation. But now Sarah grandma is like, what the fuck kind of shit is going on? So Sarah grandma go over there. She want to go, you know, being nosy. She want to go over there and knock on the door. She knock on the door, ain't nobody answering the door. So okay, whatever. She like whatever. Maybe they're not home right now. But next thing Sarah grandma know, the police is over there breaking on door, and now they done went in because they got a warrant. They went in. Dan and his family are gone. But they left the house exactly how it was. They left all the furniture. Obviously, they took the little naked girl pictures. They took everything out the closet. But as far as like beds, couches, plates, dishes, and everything, it's still there. So these people is on the motherfucking run, and it's looking like Dan and his wife and her siblings, child, they done unalived their mama, cut her up in pieces and put her over all over the city in little trash bags. And now Dan and his family is gone with the wind, girl.
There's a really strange missing persons case happening right now out of Utah. Let's talk about it. This is 21-year-old Elizabeth Green. She was last seen walking to work along a dirt road in Callio, Utah, which is an extremely remote area in northern Snake Valley. Like, there really isn't much out there, and the area she went missing is roughly 3 hours from any major city. Elizabeth had just started a new job at a remote ranch, and she was walking there that day, but never made it, and it's almost like she vanished into thin air. She was reported missing to the police later that day, and they began looking for her right away. Authorities have searched the area around her home and the ranch that she was going to work at, including the route that she would have taken to get there, but no trace of Elizabeth has been found. Police searched the ranch, which has not been publicly named, just one day after Elizabeth was reported missing, but according to them, they didn't find anything suspicious. The rancher said that she never made it to the ranch that day and that he had no contact with her, so it's left authorities wondering what truly happened to her that day. Police have tried pinging her phone, but they aren't able to get a connection, and they've searched all of her electronic devices devices, but they've all turned up nothing. There's been no activity on her social media accounts since that day either. Her mom thinks that Elizabeth could have possibly been picked up that day, but she just doesn't know by who. There's also a possibility that she arranged to have someone pick her up, but they didn't show, which could have led to Elizabeth trying to walk through the remote desert by herself. According to her family, she does suffer from some mental health issues and has ran away before, but no matter what, she's always stayed in contact with her family and she's always come back within a day. She would never just up and leave like this. Just based on the circumstances, police believe that she's in immediate danger. Like I mentioned before, Callao is extremely remote and so far away from any major city, so the fact that she just mysteriously disappeared and left behind no trace in a matter of hours is just terrifying. It's now been over a month and Elizabeth is still missing. With the summer weather coming up, we need to find out what really happened to her that day. These are some of her characteristics and what she was last seen wearing. If you have any information about this case, please contact the number on the screen.
The night I started believing in the paranormal. Hi y'all, I'm watching the most recent podcast and heard y'all were looking for some spooky ghost stories, and I've got one that still creeps me out to this day. Sorry in advance for the long post, but I want to get all the details in. LOL. Now, just to preface, this story happened a few years ago when I was still in high school. I grew up in a small town, so it was often hard for us young, angsty teens to find things to do. Me, now 21 female, and my best friend, also 21 female, our usual Friday night consisted of driving around aimlessly trying to find something to do. This night, it was me, my best friend, who I'll call Cindy, Cindy's boyfriend, Aaron, and Aaron's best friend, Zach. Now, on to the story. We were doing our usual routine of driving around the nearby big city when Aaron decided to call up his other friend who lived nearby. Now, this friend I'd never met before, but Aaron said he lived in this small mountain town close to where we were driving. I'd never heard of this town, but it is known for its history in being an old copper mining town. The friend didn't answer, but we decided to drive up that way anyways, as the friend had a cool car Aaron and Zach wanted to look at. Big car guys. We start driving up there, and mind you, it's close to 2 a.m. at this point. We had driven on dark roads throughout this entire night, and the vibes were all good. We're driving on this dark, barren road when we pass under a bridge. Immediately, I become overwhelmed by this eerie feeling. Something just felt off. I thought it was just me experiencing this, as everyone else was talking and joking about, so I brushed it off. By the time we get up to the town, Cindy was passed out in the passenger seat. I was sat behind Cindy, and Zach was sat behind Aaron, who was driving. The second we start to see houses, we all collectively agree that something about this town was just off. The streets looked impeccably clean and polished, the sidewalks all completely smooth, as if the concrete had just been laid. I had made an offhand comment about how it felt like we were transported to another time. The boys in the car collectively agreed with me, all of us acknowledging how it felt like we had passed through a portal straight to the 1930s. We continued on the drive, making jokes in an attempt to lighten the strange atmosphere we had stumbled upon. At this point, I chalked it up to the dark night and the fact that the whole town was likely asleep. Then we see the park. Now here's the thing about this park. It wasn't a full-on park, literally just a plot of grass with huge ass trees. The road allowed you to loop completely around the park, and it was absolutely empty when we first arrived. Aaron makes a comment about the park, saying he had taken pictures of his car in it before. Then he decides to drive around the park and show us where the photos were taken. As we begin the loop around this park, I feel this creepy feeling begin to intensify. The best way to describe it is it was like a heavy weight pushing down on the air in the car. At this point, it's close to summer, so all the windows are down as we're cruising along. Once we get close to the end of the loop, I spot a couple of deer outside my window. This was the first and only sign of life we saw the entire time we were there. No people, no other animals, no cars, just 3 deer. Aaron pulls over so we can get a better look at them and then decides to call his friend again to see if he would answer. At this point, I'm watching these deer and trying to distract myself from this seemingly unwarranted anxiety I was feeling. While Aaron was on the phone, Cindy was still passed out, and Zach is staring out his open window, which faced the park. Not long into us being parked here, does Zach start to yell and frantically try to roll up his window. Both Aaron and I were shocked by Zach's sudden screaming, and both go look at whatever had freaked Zach out so much. When I look out Zach's window, I saw something that I still cannot explain to this day. There, sitting beside one of the large trees, was a pure white figure. So white it looked like it was glowing. I got a pretty good glimpse at this figure, and it almost seemed blurry, but you could clearly make out the shape of a hooded person. It appeared to be kneeling with its head bowed, almost like it was praying. At this point, Zach is screaming for Aaron to get us the fuck out of there. All I could do was freeze in fear and stare at this figure sat alone in the park.
Did anyone else see that story of that lady on TikTok? Wait, let me explain. So this lady said that she's been married for 8 years and that her husband is deployed overseas all the way in Germany. She says that she barely sees her husband. He comes home like 2 or 3 times a year, and when he's home, he only stays for about 2 or 3 weeks. So for the last 2 years, she says she's been feeling real lonely, and she decided to go out and cheat on her husband. She said that she went and she had a one-night stand, and this one-night stand was so good that it turned into an every-night stand. And she recently found out she's pregnant. And clearly this is not her husband's because her husband's overseas, so the man that she's been sleeping with got her pregnant. So now, her and this dude have been messing with each other for 2 years, back and forth. Mind you, she has 3 kids with her husband. She said at first they were getting hotels and stuff, to keep her anonymous. But then, after 2 years, she got a little comfortable, and now she's allowed to go to his house. He's still not allowed to come to hers because, she got kids, and he don't got no kids. Usually she goes over there, and, she's not really paying attention to what's in her house because she has no real feelings for this man. She just, got lonely. But one day, as she's walking in, she decides to pay a little bit close attention to the pictures on his wall. And as she's looking over the pictures on her wall, guess who she sees? Her husband. So now she's freaking out because she's like, how is a picture of my husband and him in this frame on the wall? Of course, she starts panicking. She has to get to the bottom of this, but she doesn't know how to bring it up without saying, like, how do you know this man? Because this is my husband. So after a while, she decides, like, I'm just going to ask around, like, oh, who's this? Oh, that's my grandma. Oh, who that? That's my uncle. So who is this? Y'all would never believe what the man said. The man going to say, oh, that's my brother. She was thinking, like, there's no way because she's been married to him for 8 years and he's never been in none of the family functions. Like, she never even heard of her husband speak of him. So she asked, oh, is this from your dad's side? He said, yes, from my dad's side. So that makes sense because, the dad got a whole bunch of other kids. So it makes sense to why, she never really seen him. But y'all, the man she's been sleeping with 2 years is her husband's brother. But the story doesn't stop there. So he's like, yeah, that's my brother. I'm real close with him. She's all confused. Like, He starts pulling out pictures. He pulls out a picture. He said, yeah. So she's like, oh, so is he married? He was like, yeah, he is. To his wife in Germany. Yeah, they got 2 kids over there. He has a nice little family in Germany. Y'all, why the man start pulling up pictures of her husband with his wife, his new wife in Germany, and their kids? Mind you, she's pregnant by this man, who she just found out is her husband's brother. She also just found out that her husband got a whole family in Germany. So now she don't know what to do because she's been cheating on her husband has clearly been cheating on her, and now there's a baby about to be involved. Hey, that was just a story I seen, but what would y'all do?
How does a grown man disappear after having abdominal surgery just to be found in the hospital ceiling nearly 2 weeks later? And is it coincidence that another man in a similar situation also ended up in the ceiling of a hospital in the same country? When 61-year-old Tedetiki went in for surgery at the Stellenbosch Hospital, he was understandably nervous about this procedure. He underwent the abdominal surgery on October 5th, 2017, and everything went just as expected. However, during his recovery, his nurse left the room for what she claimed was mere seconds in order to grab some fresh linens. But as she returned to the room, Tedetiki was nowhere to be found. The nurse frantically searched for her patient, positive that he couldn't have gotten far. Because of the seriousness of his surgery, he was bedridden, left almost completely unable to move independently. She called his family to ask if he had somehow returned home, sending his family into a panic. His family rushed to the hospital, searching the hospital grounds themselves before reporting him missing. The initial search for Tedetiki was unsuccessful. It was as if he had just vanished into thin air, but nobody could explain how. 13 days later, as a construction crew worked on hospital renovations, they discovered Tedetiki's body in an isolated area of the hospital ceiling. An area that's incredibly difficult to reach, even for a completely capable person, much less for somebody healing from major abdominal surgery, or for somebody attempting to lift a grown man above their heads by themselves. Police reported that Tedetiki's autopsy somehow pointed to natural causes of death, but seemingly never handed that report over. His family showed a lack of faith in the investigation, saying that they were told that nothing more could be done in his case, and it remains that way to this day. Similarly, just 2 years later, on May 10, 2019, a 53-year-old construction worker named Sandil was admitted to the Mahatma Gandhi Memorial Hospital. Sandil had been helping a neighbor with a house repair when a wall collapsed, breaking his right femur. After arriving at the hospital and being assessed, Sandil's doctor suggested a transfer to a different hospital for treatment. But before the transfer could take place, Sandil had disappeared. His nurse went to check in on him and found him missing. The staff immediately began searching for him and subsequently reported him missing when they were unable to locate him. Weeks later, hospital staff would begin complaining about what they called an unbearable stench. Shortly after, a staff member would find a leak dripping down from the ceiling into the hospital storeroom. On May 25th, Sandil's decomposing body would be discovered in the hospital's ceiling. How did he get in the ceiling after breaking the biggest bone in his body? Sandil's family demanded answers, reporting that they were initially denied the ability to view his body. In both cases, the men had conditions that would prevent them from moving comfortably. How were they able to walk around freely in their state without staff or hospital visitors noticing? Not to mention the effort it would take for them to somehow climb up into the ceiling. Not much can be found on either of these cases, and both remain unsolved to this day.